He's the head basketball coach at Vermont. 11th season there, 6-time Conference Coach of the Year, 7 regular season titles, 4 tournament titles. Vermont, 28-5 on the year. They're a 13 seed in the West region, and one of my favorite first-round matchups. Really good matchup. Vermont and Arkansas on Thursday. John Becker is our guest. John, it's really nice to have you on. How are you?
Great. Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
It's great to have you, John. So I know you made the flight from Burlington to Buffalo earlier today. How does it feel to be in town and just 2 days away from the first round?
Oh, it's really exciting, and we've had a great year. I love this team, and we're excited to see what we can do Thursday night.
All right, so you have had a great year. You're coming off a huge win over UMBC in the championship game. You beat them 82-43. I'm curious, like your team, from the outside, at least when I'm looking at you guys, it seems like you show up every single night. Obviously, that's a championship game, so you know that you will. But how pleased were you with the effort, the performance, and the way they handled their business?
Yeah, I mean, it's been an incredible week. We won by an average of 37 points. There was a scoring margin in the 3 playoff games this year. And like you said, this team has showed up all year long. I was really happy. We play a really kind of relentless style on both sides of the ball and have shot the 3 really well. And I was just hoping that in the playoffs we wouldn't change the way we've played all year. And certainly we didn't. The guys were, focused and played great. And, we kind of rolled through the playoffs, which is, as a coach, very gratifying.
John Becker joining us. John, when you mentioned that you were hoping that the guys continue to play with consistency in the way they had throughout the year once the playoffs started, then you go into the NCAA tournament. It seems like you've got a lot of experience on that roster. How much of a benefit is that when you're going into the NCAA tourney and you've got a group of guys who you know are not going to be awestruck by the moment and that it's not going to be too big?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think, per Ken Palm, we're the 4th oldest team in the country, and a lot of guys have played in the NCAA tournament already. So, this group has been very, level-headed, despite, the excitement of being in the NCAA tournament. We're hoping to stay in this tournament, and these guys have been great all year, and yes, certainly having experience. I mean, I think everyone in college basketball is older, just with everyone getting the COVID year back. But for us, having that experience is really key. And I know the guys are. It's a business trip, and they'll be focused and locked in here, and we'll put a game plan together, and we have a lot of confidence the guys will go out and execute.
Vermont head coach John Becker is my guest. So obviously you're locked in, you're looking ahead. If I could get you to look back for one special moment. In the America East Championship game, you subbed out Justin Mazzulla, and the two of you had a huge embrace. His father passed away during the season. Your father passed away during the season. I'm curious, is there any way to describe or to put into words what that embrace was like for both of you?
Yeah, I mean, it was really emotional. And Justin, this is his first. He started at George Washington and then came over, transferred to us, and this is his first NCAA, appearance. And he's just one of those kids. His brother's Joe Mazzulla, who was a great player at West Virginia, and now is assistant coach with the Celtics. And they're just a basketball family, and it was his dream, his goal, and he was very upfront about that. And and so he's just put so much into our program and into his teammates and into his own game, and he just wanted it so bad. So when I subbed him out, and kind of realized that it was going to happen, and he was so close with his dad, who was his coach, and was raised him essentially, and so I knew how much he's been hurting all year, not his dad not being able to see him play and have the success he was having, and so and then I lost my dad, and so I really knew that feeling of losing a dad and what that means and how much that hurts, and so it was just the emotions just came out of both of us, and I love that kid, and it meant the world to me to be able to get them to the NCAA tournament.
Beautiful thoughts. John Becker joining us. Really, I mean, it's so cliche, John, but there is no playbook for that type of thing. You're a leader, and you're the guy that everybody leans on, but then something happens to you, and who do you lean on? And there is no playbook. Right. I'm always so fascinated by the journey that coaches take to get where they are. Like back in the day, you worked summers at Strain Right. What was that job like?
Yeah, I used to Strain Right. My neighbors owned a business up in New Haven, Connecticut. And I worked in the warehouse and then drove trucks and delivered product. They made filtration bags for chemicals and things like that. I mean, I worked in factories my whole life, kind of coming up, it's just hopefully giving me some perspective, that I can pass along to my players, and certainly I have an appreciation for being able to be a basketball coach and be around these great kids and to do this for a living, I'm blessed.
I want to say one thing about that, though, John. Like when you say that I worked in factories coming up, so I have this perspective, yes, absolutely. But the fact of the matter is, you also helped out in the family business. I helped out in my family business. I don't know about you and how that went for you. It did not go well for me because my father, I talked him into it. He knew that I never wanted to be in the family business, and I kind of wore him down and talked him into it when he said no repeatedly. And he had a factory, and I worked in the factory, and I hated it, and that's why I was so determined to get back in radio. Now, when you say you worked in factories, that's not the only thing you did. Like, you were involved in a startup. You were positioned to make a lot of money in the tech field, but you went the coaching route as an assistant at Catholic University and then as the basketball ops director at Vermont. Like, what was that tradition like professionally and financially?
Yeah, I mean, financially it wasn't great, but I don't know. I just woke up one day and just said, you know what, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing, I had a young family and I wanted to provide, and obviously the best I could and make money, but I just knew in my heart that this is not what I was meant to do or what I was supposed to do, and it didn't feel right. And you kind of talk yourself out of it for a lot of years because you want to provide and because of that. And but when I just couldn't just keep lying to myself like that, I guess. And so Jimmy Patsos, who's
love him,
was the assistant coach at Maryland at the time. I called him up and started working Gary Williams basketball camp back in the early '90s, and an opportunity. The head coach at Gallaudet University, Jimmy DeStefano, who's one of my favorite people in the world. He reached out to Jimmy looking for an assistant coach, make a couple $1,000 part-time gig, and Jimmy recommended me, and I went over and interviewed with Jimmy, and he's deaf, and I didn't know sign language at the time, but we were able to communicate. His brother had gone to Catholic University where I went to school, and there was a connection there. We just hit it off immediately, and I ended up being at Gallaudet for 5 years, and that kind of started the journey. And then I got out of coaching because the money was, I was only making a couple $1,000, and I was working full time at Georgetown University in the computer. I used to go around to the student computer labs, and back when there was no wireless, or people didn't really have computers. You had to go to the computer lab to type up papers and whatnot. And I was managing the computer labs on Georgetown's campus, university's campus, and then going across town to coach in the afternoon and into the night. And I did that for 5 years, and it just I had to make a decision, and so I got out of coaching when they wouldn't make the job full time at Gallaudet, and yeah, so I was out of it for a couple of years, and then again, I kind of just was like, what am I doing? And anyway, an opportunity at Catholic University opened up when Mike Lonergan left to be an assistant at Maryland, and then eventually the head coach at Vermont, and I went to work for Steve Howes for a couple of years, and then ended up at Vermont as the ops guy, and then as an assistant, and then somehow they gave me the job up here 11 years ago, and I guess the rest is history.
It is, except it could have gone a different route. Now, are you also not what you think? I'm not going where you think. Are you also not a drummer? And never mind all these basketball influences. If you're a drummer, are you a John Bonham guy, a Keith Moon guy, a Neil Peart guy? Like, what are the influences?
Yeah, I'm all those guys. But the Rolling Stones probably is probably just a blues drummer. Pretty simple, but can lay down a nice beat for the guys to play over top of. And we have fun every Thursday night. A group of my friends come to the house. I have a little studio in my basement, and we have some fun and play some music. And it's a great release.
Hey, John, I never get the answer I'm looking for, and yet I keep asking the question. I don't know when I'm going to learn, but I'll ask you, and I think I already know since you just said it, but Stones or The Who?
For me, the Stones.
Yep. I knew it. I should not keep asking the question. I never get the answer I want. I love the Stones. Don't get me wrong, but I'm a Who guy. But I love the Stones. All right. So one last thought.
They're both unbelievably great. But
right?
Yeah.
All right, so Eric Musselman and I, last thought, he and I go way, way back. We actually, I joke about it, but it's true. He and I came up together. Like when we were both 23 and I was working in local radio and he was in the CBA, I started to interview him. This was long before there was the internet or social media. He and I go way back, so I know the intensity that he and his team are going to bring on Thursday, and I know you do too. When you look at them as an opponent, what kind of thoughts do you have?
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, they're relentless. They're going to guard. They're going to play downhill all night. They're going to be super aggressive offensively. They're going to, like I said, guard you, cut the court in half, and make you play, so to speak. And they're tough. I mean, I competed against his Nevada team in the semifinals of the CBI in 2016, I believe, and they beat us up pretty good. He had a really good team up there and out there, and so. They're good. I mean, when you're a 13 seed playing a 4 seed, you're playing, one of the best teams in the country, and they're certainly that.
Listen, I have not spoken to him this week, but I would imagine when he saw that, he probably saw you as a 13 and thought, wow, man, that is a tough 13. Hey, listen, you know how it goes. This time of year, you have to deal with them. They have to deal with you, too, though. It's going to be a really good matchup. It's Vermont and Arkansas Thursday. Can't wait to see it. John Becker is the head coach of Vermont. Hey, John, great conversation. Thanks for making time the week of the game, and really good to talk to you and Vermont basketball.
Yeah, Jim, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Been a huge fan my whole life, so keep up the great work.
My man, I appreciate you saying that, John. Thanks so much. Really appreciate you, too.